G'day team, this video is just going to be a full rundown on the Sire method that I use. I couldn't find any guides with a run efficient strategy, so I figured I'd make one. I haven't made a video before, so feel free if there are any other bosses that you want me to cover that I can go over. I figure this boss is annoying enough when you don't run out of shoot points, so it's even better if you have a strategy that doesn't need a stamina potion or some stupid POH method. First up, I'll just jump into the requirements for this boss. Number 1 is going to be 85 Slayer in order to be assigned an Abyssal Demon's task, which you will need to fight Sire. Finally, you'll need access to fairy rings. You can duck through the abyss and crawl through a hole to get to the lair where Sire is, but using fairy ring DIP is heaps easier. Next, I'm going to jump into the gear setup for this boss. You're basically going to want a full melee setup with a little 6-way mage in your inventory and a spec weapon. So we've got the Slayer helmet there, Infernal Cape or Fire Cape is fine. Blood Fury is really handy for some passive healing. I bring the Gommel's Lucky Penny because otherwise it's just gathering dust in my bank. A Rada's Blessing is totally fine. I bring Asmund's Fang. The ornament kit is super important for the flex. It's only slightly worse DPS than the Arclight, so bring the Arclight if you got heaps of charges, but otherwise the Fang is really good. Torva or Bandos is totally fine. It's not really that important. You can even bring a Fighter Torso with Obby Plate Legs. A Vernic Defender or Dragon Defender is good. Ferocious Gloves, Barrow's Gloves, all good. Primordial Boots or Dragon Boots are fine. I bring the Berserker Ring there over the Lightbearer. I brought the Lightbearer for a little while, but I felt like the DPS that the B-Ring gives you through the Fang is really good, and the specs don't really do much for you. As far as my 6-way mage there, I've got Tumeken Shadow, and then the Occult Necklace, Mage Arena 2 Cape, Tormentor Bracelet, and then Ancestral top and bottom. You can obviously downgrade Ancestral to Arms, which is fine. If you don't have a Shadow, bring a Sanguinesti Staff, and if you have one of those, it'll give you that passive healing, so you can swap the Blood Fury out for a Torture. If you don't have a Sang, you can just bring a Toxic Trident, or some people opt for the Bow of Ferrodenon and full crystal armor. I don't really think that's an awesome option because it means that you have to bring 2 range pots, but it is what it is. As far as the spec weapon goes, I'm bringing the Void Waker because Lizard Brain likes big numbers, and you don't do any defense reduction on this boss. You can bring Dragon Claws if you don't have this, that's really good, and otherwise I probably wouldn't bother with a spec weapon at all. And then I've got 3 Divine Super Combats. I've got the Saturated Heart there. If you don't have the Saturated Heart, you can just bring the Imbued Heart. Same goes for the Divines. If you only have access to normal Super Combats, that's fine as well. And then I bring 9 Super Restores. Those can obviously be Prayer Pots. And I bring 1 Antidote ++. You can bring an Anti-Venom if you want, but I think that the amount of time that gives you with the Divine Combats is about an hour worth of killing Sire, which is more than I can handle in one sitting usually. Then we've got the Construction Cape, just to get back home, to refill on the Ornate Pool. If you don't have one of those, you can just bring a Ring of Dueling. And then we've got the Rune Pouch. You're going to want to be on Ancients for this one, and you'll want runes for a Shadow spell. So, obviously, I'm assuming that you've got access to Shadow Barrage, and you'll want to bring the runes shown on screen: Air, Blood, Death, and Souls. I like to bring 10,000 of each because Sire does drop some of these, and that's more than enough for the trip. So just to save you a bit of inventory space picking up the loot. And finally, before you head into the fight, you'll grab some pre-pots. I just pre-pot a Stamina for the run, a 1-dose Divine Super Combat, and a 1-dose Antidote ++. So jumping into the fight overview next, there are 4 phases to the fight. Phase 1 is just dealing with the vents after having incapacitated Sire with a Shadow spell. You won't need to pray any overheads or boost prayers during this phase, so you basically just cast Shadow Barrage and then run around the room taking these vents out. I've got a run efficient strategy using the tiles that I have marked in the video. I've also got them exported for you to import from the YouTube description down below. During this phase, it is handy to count to 50 damage for each vent. You can use the damage plugin, but I personally don't think it's worth it. You can just have a look at the HP and figure it out from the XP drop. Using Control Walk during this phase will save you a bunch of run energy. Some of the tiles are marked Walk, and if you hold Control while you attack the vent and you have the setting enabled, you'll just walk in and be on tick to attack the vent. Alongside this, you can use a Phantom Blood Barrage on Vent 4 as you're finishing Phase 1 to top your HP up just a little bit without losing any ticks. In P2, Sire will wander down from his throne. In this phase, you'll pray Protect from Melee and Piety. There aren't any tentacles during this phase. He has 4 different attacks that he can do here. He can poke you in the face, that one maxes a 6 through melee prayer. He can whip you with those things coming out of his back, that one can properly sting. It's got a max of 26. This one, he has a little acid thing. He tries to trick you into thinking that he's fallen asleep, and then he'll summon an acid pool underneath you. You'll notice that it just pops up underneath you. You only need to move 2 tiles away to dodge. And finally, he can summon some little spawns that come out and hit you with range. It's not worth praying against these, you can just ignore them for the fight. Once you've brought Sire below 200 HP, he'll walk to the middle of the room and begin Phase 3. In preparation for this phase, it's helpful to stand under Sire, which will push you out for your first attack and make the first poison pool irrelevant. In this phase, you'll pray Protect from range and Piety, and camp that until the end of the fight. During Phase 3, the tentacles are awake, and you have to stay in the middle of the room to avoid them being able to whip you while you're attacking Sire. Once you bring him below 140 HP, he'll enter Phase 4, in which he'll teleport you down to the bottom of the room, and you have to run away 2 tiles before he has this big demonic C section, and a bunch of little fellas get spawned. You don't have to run very far away, just literally 2 tiles back is enough to avoid the explosion. And then you can spam click him to come back and attack, and you won't lose any ticks. Failing to dodge the explosion can hit you for up to 96. Because there are so many spawns chipping you down in this phase, this is the time to dump your specs, so that you spend less time taking damage. There are 2 things to avoid when you're doing this method. Number 1 is blood barraging to heal on the scions that spawn during P4. This is just wasting time and prolonging the fight when you're taking the most damage. If you need to eat, try and eat while Sire is transitioning phases. Secondly, if you do get an unsired, make sure you go and dip it straight away because it has the opportunity to roll the same bludgeon piece twice if you get more than one before dipping. That's the basic overview of the fight there. It's pretty simple. You'll notice that I start to run back through Sire on Phase 4 so that I can be ready to Shadow Barrage and start the next kill, and then I pick up my loot between Vent 2 and Vent 3 just to save a little bit of time. I'm getting around 30 kills per hour with this method. It's super easy. The loot is not amazing, but it's definitely worth it if you're going for the pet. That's more than enough chat. I reckon we'll get into a couple of kills now, just showcasing the strategy. Rather than putting it at a very pretty time during the trip where the method is flawless and the shadow actually decides to hit, I've put it in at a time where I had not much HP to just show you how to top up on the vents and to refreeze Sire if you need to. So Shadow Barraging Sire to start off P1. Sometimes you get dragged in on that first vent if he's not quite asleep, and I just duck out 2 tiles away so that the tentacle doesn't slap me across the face, but you can just tank it and use that transition tile in a usual kill. A couple of pretty big blood barrages here, usually it hits much lower than that, and just going through the tiles, it's super simple. And there's the Phantom Barrage as your last hit. You can just queue that one up as soon as you see the XP drop for the hit that's going to kill it. Most of your time here is just going to be spent juggling the loot. So P2 starts here. Notice the tile that I was standing on drags me in to attack Sire. And then I'm going to use that same tile again. Control walk there just to save a little bit extra run energy. And then the first hit drags you out from underneath. He's tellied me into P4. 2 tiles back. Dump your spec. Move. And then I'm going to run through and finish it off. No more spawns can happen underneath you here, so you can just AFK, switch into your mage gear again, and start the next kill. If you make any mistakes and come off too early, you can just duck straight back on like that. Beware though, that will use a lot more run energy. And here you see the timer gets below 6 seconds, which means that I need to restun Sire. Takes me a very long time to realize that that actually happened. So run across so that it doesn't path you weirdly, and the tentacles will instantly fall asleep on the second Shadow Barrage. Always repot the antidote as soon as it runs out, because the pools can hit you very hard if you're not protected. Bit early. Again, refreezing Sire here. He doesn't wake up. If he's already doing the animation of waking up, then you'll have to re-Shadow Barrage him again. Here I have a couple of pokes on the Scion while Sire's down, just to try and get a Blood Fury proc. I don't really care about killing it. Always instantly repot. Alrighty, thanks for sticking with me, team. Feel free to leave a comment if you got any suggestions for other bosses or videos you'd like to see in the future. The music for this is a remix of the Sire theme Into the Abyss by Bad Soy. And finally, please like this video. It very well may be the only thing you like about killing Sire.